enough, a historic speech that will be talked about for decades to come. Foreign policy expert Sierra Claire with us this morning because there was a lot of foreign policy highlights in his speech. Sierra, good morning to you. Your initial takeaways from the night.
Good morning, Vanessa. Yeah, as you said, it's interesting to see what was mentioned from foreign policy in the speech. Obviously, the speech is an update to Congress, and so President Trump is going to talk about some of his major wins and policy initiatives. But he really brought into focus how his foreign policy is helping Americans, and I thought that was interesting. He mentioned that we are purchasing oil from Venezuela, that shipment has arrived. He mentioned his initiatives to bring peace and how he brings families back together, returning hostages from Gaza. Um, he mentioned also Iran. And if you looked at, what he said about Iran, of course, he mentioned his success with Operation Midnight Hammer. But he also, reiterated that he wants to try diplomacy first, but he's not afraid to use force if necessary with this latest round of negotiations. And I think it was interesting that he put that in the speech because there's so much speculation about what he is doing or what he thinks about Iran. And I think we're seeing him, just reiterate and list out everything that he's done and how he's used real-time information to make all of the decisions that he's made in foreign policy. And, I think that's important for people to remember, and it's important for President Trump to lay out his policy in that way, because that's what he ran on, is peace through strength. And he didn't run on ideological things. He didn't run on saying, I'm definitely going to do this or I'm definitely not going to do that. He has all his options open to him, and he makes those decisions about what's best for American interests with real-time information.
You're right. And you hit everything really well there, going down the list of what all he discussed. Let's go back to Venezuela. He did make that announcement on Venezuela oil after the capture of Maduro. Let's listen in.
American oil production is up by more than 600,000 barrels a day, and we just received from our new friend and partner, Venezuela, more than 80 million barrels of oil.
Yeah, so that's the first time we really got an update on the oil situation from Venezuela.
Yeah, and I thought that was perfect timing for him to announce that, during the State of the Union. And as you can see, what he did in Venezuela, not only benefited so many situations, weakening China's presence in the Western Hemisphere, weakening Iran and Hezbollah's presence in the Western Hemisphere, but also, good for American energy policy, securing oil for America as we are trying to do all of this new building that he wants to do. So it really falls in line with his plans of revitalizing American manufacturing, revitalizing American supply chains that are closer to home. And when you saw him announce that in the State of the Union, I think it's just makes it, so much harder for people, especially on the left, to say, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing, or he is, he's causing chaos around the world. And he's laying it out there in his speech that no, there was a strategy here, and now it's coming into place, and it's benefiting Americans.
I want to kind of sway over just a little bit for a second here, Sierra, because he did not talk about Cuba. Marco Rubio did yesterday, though. He gave us an update on Cuba, and I want to bring that up since we are talking about Venezuela because of their close ties. Let's take a quick listen to Marco Rubio's update.
But if the Cuban economy were a functioning economy, it would have a much larger private sector. And so what's clear is that, and I would say this, that the people of Cuba are suffering today. They've been suffering for a long time. They're suffering now, perhaps more than at any time in recent memory, perhaps in the history since 1959. This is the worst economic climate that Cuba has faced, and it is the authorities there in that government who are responsible for that. They are the ones that have made decisions that have left Cuba vulnerable to the situation they're now in.
Yeah, and he also said yesterday, Sierra Senator Secretary now, Marco Rubio, that Iran is a threat to America ahead of negotiations, high stakes negotiations going on right now. We know Kushner is there, Witkoff is there. Updating top leaders of Congress to Iran. So give us an update of what's all happening today and probably into tomorrow as well.
Yeah, well, on the Cuba thing, I loved how Rubio said the regime is responsible for this. The government is responsible for what is going on with the people because the United States has provided humanitarian aid to Cuba via some different charities, and I believe they've even worked with Catholic charities to try to get different aids to people because of also relief from hurricanes and storms and things like that. But it's the regime that is making the people suffer. And so driving that home and reminding people of that just reinforces the policy and the isolation and cutting off the regime and hopefully, having support from our partners around the world to continue isolating that regime. On Iran, we're seeing negotiations continue. I'm hearing that Iran is still very far apart from the U.S., not really meeting the demands of the U.S. There is some talk about enriched uranium and possibly transferring that to the U.S. That's a demand that the U.S. has. I think that's a common sense demand that the U.S. is making. I don't see the Iranian regime agreeing to that, but they are in those negotiations and they are continuing on.
Yeah, and we'll continue to follow that. Again, those are happening today as well. The president touting Sierra being the president of peace, the wars that he has ended in just 1 year, and those that are in the process of being nipped in the bud. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about ending wars across the world.
Our country has never been stronger. In my first 10 months, I ended 8 wars, including Cambodia. Isn't it funny? Sick people. Cambodia and Thailand, Pakistan and India would have been a nuclear war. 35 million people said the Prime Minister of Pakistan would have died if it were not for my involvement.
And of course, the left laughs at him, disrupts his speech, disrupts what he's trying to say. These are people who, under the Biden administration, this was all going on and nothing was being done about it. And President Trump has been very vocal about if I was president, a lot of these wars would have never even started. And so he's trying to come in and end these wars and talk about it at the State of the Union, and of course gets heckled by the left.
Yeah, I mean, so telling, right, of the Democrats and that they literally can't sit through a speech and hear about true facts about President Trump's policy, what he has done, and they're just in complete denial and they have to yell out about it, apparently. Um, but as you said, he highlighted the wars that he's been involved in ending. And I think, and as you said, the world became such a dangerous place. All of these conflicts, hot spots that were simmering just all kind of took off at once under Biden because he was completely absent on the world stage. And President Trump bringing that back, reeling everything back in, which is a lot of work and a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, that I'm sure the Democrats don't even know about, how much work and as Rubio always says, political capital that Trump expends on these issues. But it was interesting, he talked about the Cambodia, he talked about the India Pakistan issue, and both of those issues were solved with trade, and that was really how he was able to insert himself and make a difference. And then as he said, that India Pakistan issue is very it's a very issue that needs to be watched closely because they are both nuclear armed states, so definitely want to keep that border peaceful. And, that's how he does that with trade.
And we'll continue to follow because, again, some of these wars are still in the negotiation phases, but he's working hard with his administration to try to put an end to it. While we have you, we've been following what's going across our border there in Mexico with the cartel, and El Mencho was killed, one of the top kingpins of the cartel, and the cartel retaliated. A lot of this, Sierra, happening in cities where a lot of Americans, Canadians, people go to these resort towns for vacation, and the cartel are burning down businesses, cars. The State Department put out releases to shelter in place. I know the airport was shut down for a little bit, and some of the resort towns. It's just really scary to see the cartel in action.
Absolutely. Often Mexico is been reported as one of the most dangerous countries, if not the most dangerous country in the world, to visit. And the left continually says, that's racist or that's not true. And I think that with this latest strike on the cartels and the retaliation that we're seeing, we're seeing how true that is. We're seeing how much it's been downplayed. I'm not sure the reason why, whether it's to kind of the left wanted to somehow be best friends with the Mexican government or whatever they were getting out of that. But now we're seeing that, yeah, this country is a tinderbox. Any upset to the cartel's control, to them doing whatever they want, not having nothing to fear from the US, from the Mexican government. That's how they were operating for all of these years. And the minute that, the US aided the Mexican government in trying to change that and trying to bring down some accountability and say, no, you cannot operate, in such a barbaric manner, having these leaders like El Mencho who are just use these awful methods of suppressing people. Then you see that, now the whole country's on fire almost. And like you said, cars are being set on fire, airports had to close. So I think it's just a reminder that, number one, don't listen to the left. And at least for now, you can count on the State Department to tell you the truth. Mexico is very dangerous. And we have to remember this is right next door. This is right on our border. And that's what I hear a lot of people talking about here in California. It's like this could spill over into San Diego, into LA, if we don't put a stop to it, if we don't get control of it. So I think it's really important
You're
President
absolutely
Trump is
right.
focusing on this.
Yeah, and a lot of this was going on in Tijuana, right across the border from San Diego. So it is right on our doorsteps where this is taking place. And also, Sierra, how many cartel members are here in the U.S. whenever we had open borders under Biden? So that's what's scary as well. But seeing what's going on there is definitely an eye opener, especially for people who are planning on vacations to Mexico. Be very careful, maybe make other arrangements, but safety first, because it is a real ongoing dangerous situation there in Mexico because of the cartel. As we wrap it up, I want to remind everyone that you have a new podcast that's out. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's called the 11 o'clock hour. I have a new episode coming out today at 11 a.m. You can find that on YouTube. More of my Substack, sierranock.substack.com, and follow me on X for updates.
And just like we were talking with Jimmy earlier from Ohio, you'll also be at CPAC next month. So we're excited to see you as well. It's just a big family reunion. We see each other on air all the time. We talk on the phone, but to really get into one spot and give each other hugs around the neck and working for a good cause to save this country, it's always special. So we'll see you there next month as well. Appreciate your time with us here this morning, Sierra. Thank you.
Thank you.